Well, good morning. Thank you, Pastor. You're my friend. I love you. We didn't start out that way. It was all business in the beginning. But I found out that you was a man of God. I love God's people. It don't matter to me what you look like. It don't matter where you come from. But if you got God in you, you can count on it that Avery Johnson really loves you. And I'm telling you, there's nothing any better than God's people. But every now and then, somebody comes in and creeps through. And you know what we need to do? We need to get that person and start teaching them. Just share with them about who God really is and what God can do for their life if they would just listen. And then sooner or later, maybe they'll catch up with the rest of us. I'm having a hard time just trying to slow down and get my thoughts together. Pastor told me this morning I had at least about 10 more minutes than what he had already told me, and so now I'm almost up to an hour of standing here speaking. And I'm saying to myself, I may have to revamp just a little bit, talk about some of the other things. I want to start off, though, thank my wife for being here. I love you, Leila. And there's a lot of people out here I know that you probably know me. You may have worked with me. I worked at Maytag for 43 years and 8 months. And I was all over the place, you know. Started out there washing trucks. Can you believe that? I was just a boy. I was 19-year-old washing trucks, working in the garage. They were changing the name from Dixie Product to Magic Chef. And I stayed there for 43 years and 8 months, and when I left there, I was over the whole trucking department, the shipping department. And that is for the people I had. You know, people can make you look good if you treat them right. I took care of the people that worked for me, and believe me, there's not enough time in the day to tell you about what all we went through. Because, I mean, I had all kind of people. One time I had 142 people working under my supervision, and I had 7 supervisors that were taking care of those people, men and women. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of problems. Things come up that you just wouldn't even expect. And if I told you about them, some of you would say, I don't know whether that's true or not, but it is. It is. All kinds of things can happen in the same way with the church. Just because you got the name of God with you don't mean that the devil ain't going to come in, because he's going to come in. He's always there. About who I am, anybody in here met me, know me pretty well? Just raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to see you again. I was born and raised right here in Cleveland, Bradley County. I realized at an early age that I needed to do something for my community. And I got involved in a lot of civic organizations. One of them I'll tell you about. It's kind of humorous because I was president of the Gideons at one time. The thing about it was I went to 3 meetings. The first meeting they gave me an assignment, and I came back the second time and I reported that I had taken care of one of them. The next meeting, they come back, they give me a no, and I come back, and I told them I done take care of that. And then I went home because I had to cut my yard. Well, I was out there, and I done made one round, and I looked up, and here come 3 Gideons pulling in my driveway. And I said, Lord, what do they want now? I thought we just met that morning and talked about everything. And they said, Brother Avery, we want you to serve as president of the Gideons. I said, president of the Gideons? I mean, that's just my 3rd meeting. They said, yeah, but I think you can handle it. I think you can handle it. You just need to serve as president of the Gideon. And you know, Pastor, excuse me, I looked at him, I said, you know, I believe in affirmative action, but this is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, 3 meetings, and here you are wanting me to serve as president. They said, no, Doc, believe me, you can handle it. You can handle it. And I did. So I've served as president of Gideon's. I've served as president of the Lions Club. I've served as president of the Toastmasters Club, where I learned how to stand here and talk without shaking. And I was in school and I was running for president of the student council. I didn't realize God was preparing me for these particular days. But I was running for president of the student council and I gave my speech and I was standing there and my microphone was shaking and I'm trying to keep still and I couldn't keep still and, but I won. So it was all a part of God's plan. Today, I want to talk about freedom, this journey of freedom. This is 4th of July, though, and on the 4th of July, I wrote it out here so I wouldn't forget it. On the 4th of July, I grew up in Cleveland in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and then the rest of it is et cetera, the 70s and on and on. But the 4th of July, the one that I remember was the ones where we had fireworks. We had barbecue. We had sweet potato pie. We had cakes. And we had family reunions. We had watermelon. We played games. And, we had sack races. I know some of you don't know what sack races are, but we had them. And we did a lot of things on the 4th of July. And my family still is very traditional. They still love to do those things. I've got a sister that's invited us to come over after a while, and what she does, she takes her whole living room and just sets it up with tables and food. And everybody comes in. I've seen kin people come in that I didn't even know were kin to me, but they show up. They show up when something like that is going on. And it's a tradition of our family, and we just love to get together, especially family. There's nothing like family. Believe me, we all got all kind of people in our family. And I'm telling you, we got some people in there that I'm thinking, who does that one belong to? Who's this one, And how did they get in here? Because I've seen them, I know, but that's family. And you know what? The church is the same way. God said, whosoever will, let him come. And I'm telling you, I'm a living witness. If you're going to live in this world, you're going to need God somewhere along the way. My mama was right. My mama was right. She talked about this, and she said, Avery, she used to tell me all the time, just like my school teachers, said, stay focused, because things are going to change. I come through the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and it wasn't always nice. It wasn't always fair, and it definitely was not equal with all I had to come through, There's so much rich history in Bradley County. You just would not believe where we came from to where we are right now. It's just so much that I've read about, and I looked in the books, and anybody read Bradley Divided? It's sort of, Bradley Divided. You need to read that book. It's by Miss Emma, and the lady that Inman Street was named after. She helped her write that book. And it talked about the Civil War. It talked about how people were divided in Cleveland. I don't care what the issue is. When things come up, there's going to be division. It's always going to be somebody. They don't know what you know. They hadn't been through what you've been through. And what we got to do is learn how to reach out and get those people and just bring them in. I remember, I will share with you one of the stories I remember when I was 12 years old. I was 12 years old, and I had a best friend, and his name was Johnny Watson. Did you know the Watson brothers? Anybody in here ever know Mr. J.B. Watson that owned the Watson stores? You got the Watson stores. There were several of them all over town. Well, Johnny Watson was one of the sons of the man that started the Watson stores, Mr. J.B. Watson. But Johnny went to Bradley High School. I went to College Hill High School. It's an all-black school. I actually graduated from that school. And so every day when I would get out of school, I would go to my backyard and I'd be looking for Johnny. And then when Johnny got out of school, he would meet me in the backyard of his house. And we had a fence in the backyard. Johnny lived facing Dooley Street. I lived facing Galt Street. So we were backed up to each other. And the fence was in the back, but me and Johnny would meet at the fence when he got in from school, and we'd talk. You know, we just talk. He was just my friend. I mean, such a good person. I know Johnny died a few years ago, but he was such a good friend. And we used to stand there and pass football over the fence, you know, back and forth. That's what I liked about Johnny. Johnny had a football, and he had one that had air in it. Mine, I had one, but it didn't have enough air in it, you know. But Johnny had the football, had air in it, and we would stand there and toss that football back and forth across the fence. And he had brothers, and he had one brother named Jack Watson. And Jack went to University of Mississippi, played football. He was an All-American and all of that. And every now and then, Jack would come out there, and he would see me and Johnny out passing the ball, and he would show us how to grip it and rip it. It's the first time I ever heard it. I heard it from Jack Watson, you know. And so I learned to throw the ball. And I don't know, I thought I saw my brother, but maybe I didn't back there. But my brother remembers when I used to throw the ball, I would rip it, I would grip it and rip it and throw it almost from one block to another block. I mean, I just love to play football and love to throw the ball. But Johnny told us how to grip it and rip it. It broke my heart when I thought about the fence that separated me from my friend Johnny. But I still remember the conversations that we had at the fence. You know, I wasn't allowed to go over on the other side of the fence. Johnny wasn't allowed to come on my side of the fence. You know, we always had a fence between us. But I got to know him pretty well, especially later on in life. You know, such a good person, but such a challenging moment for me. And I realized that something is broke in this system. Something is broke. I came here today, and the pastors asked me to come and speak. But I want to talk to you just briefly, Pastor, about how long shall I ring the bell? How long shall I ring the bell? Back in 1976, President Gerald Ford says, he issued an executive order, and he says to all Americans, he said, on July the 4th, 1976, America is going to be celebrating 200 years of freedom. And I want all Americans to ring a bell for 2 minutes in honor of 200 years of freedom. He says, if you don't have a bell, I want you to toot your horn and blow your horn for 2 minutes in celebration of 200 years of freedom. We've got to do something, he said, in order to show that we appreciate the freedom we have received in America and the freedom that we have, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. They even put it in writing, all of it. It's right there for everybody to see, you know, all the freedom that we have. And at my church, you know, we got an old bell, and I remember that old bell that was in the tower. And when I was coming, you know, when I was going to Sunday school every morning, I could hear that bell ring about 15 to 20 minutes saying that it's time to come to Sunday school. We're getting ready to start, and it's going to start in 20 minutes. You could count on it. And I remember as a little boy, when I walked into the hallway, I'd look over, and we had a room that we called the bell tower room. It had the bell way up in the top of the ceiling. And we had some old deacons around there. Any old deacons around here? Don't raise your hand. But we had some around there. And I remember when they used to ring that bell, especially the one called Andrew Pittner. He was a janitor at the school. And they would ring that bell in the bell tower. And then whenever it came down, they would hold on to the rope. They wouldn't turn it loose. And when that bell went back through its motion, it would lift them off the floor. Sometimes like that, they'd be still holding on, ringing that bell. Andrew Pittner, and also Melvin Kirkpatrick. Melvin Kirkpatrick was one of the oldest deacons at our church. What a man. He told me war stories about how he was in Germany, how they were marching across the field, and there were tanks, like 1,000 of them lined up. I used to love to listen to his war stories, but they were true. He was on the outside of the tank, and there was another fellow on the other side of the tank, and there they were, about 1,000 walking across the field, going to battle, you know. And he said, Avery said, people were falling, men were falling like trees, you know. He said, but look at me. I'm still here. And he said, you know, so the only reason why I made it was because of the grace of God. He said he'll do the same thing for you if you just honor him, if you just learn to love him. He said, because I'm telling you, God is real. You know, and then he talked about all the war stories and everything, but he would always end up by saying, you know, if it wasn't but for God on my side, don't know what I would have done. Don't know where I would have ended up. But I wanted to get that bell. I said, you know, this is good. The president has asked everybody to ring a bell for 2 minutes. I wanted to get that bell, get all the people together, and let's just ring the bell, you know, especially this bell. The bell was lost for a while. And when we tore down the church, they tore down the tower, and the bell just disappeared. So when the president issued that order, you know, actually before that, I got to thinking about that bell, and I told my brother, I said, hey, I don't know what they've done with the bell. I said, but that bell needs to be here. And so we went and talked to some of the deacons. We finally found one that had it in his tool shed. He had it in the back of the house. He done put it back there because it meant a lot to him as well. And it was Melvin Kirkpatrick. And so we told him that we need that bell back for the church. He said, okay, Deke, said, I'm just holding on to it. I'm also a deacon at my church, so I can talk about us. I know what we're going through. I know what it's like. Believe me, not only that, but I was, you know, so far out there that I even took on being chairman of the finance committee. And money, you know, the city used to have this thing with budgets, and we sit down, we still go through budgets every year and all this kind of stuff. And they said, Avery, you seem to be okay with everything, taking it. I said, oh, you know, city budget, that's just a drop in the bucket. You ought to have to be treasurer of, well, anyway, my church. But we got the bell. We fixed the bell up, and we mounted that bell on the outside of the church. And right now, when you drive up Inman Street going toward Oak Court, you look over at our church, and the bell's right there, you know. I said, yeah, that means a lot to me to have that. But when we thought about what the president wanted to do, I said, well, okay, I'm going to get everybody together. You know, and so that night I thought about it and everything. I was still all excited. I went to sleep. And somehow or another, in the middle of the night, it seemed like I could hear voices. And the voices were saying to me, how long can you ring that bell? Celebrating 2 minutes for 200 years of freedom. How long can you ring the bell, Avery? You know, I tried to go back to sleep, and they said, now what you gonna do? And I got to thinking about our journey and thinking about the plight of my race of people. You know, how some of them had been abused, and I said, 200 years of freedom, and then one voice says to me and brought it to my mind, said, you haven't been free in no 200 years. This is in 1976. It said, remember, they just killed Martin Luther King in 1968, just a few years ago. And just keep watching things, and you'll see that you can't ring that bell for 2 minutes. And so I kept going through the question, well, how long can I ring the bell? Because I really wanted to get the bell together. I wanted to ring that bell one more time, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I passed up an opportunity to ring the bell. And it says here that 200 years of freedom. None of us have really been free 200 years. We might have called it freedom, but believe me, there is not a person in here that haven't had some struggles and some disappointments in life and some challenges. And they've been told that, well, you're not qualified. I don't care what color you are. You need this, you need that from time to time. That's the reason why you need God on your side, because God can help you get around all those obstacles. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't know it was true. But you see, I'm a living witness that God can bring you through. Look at what he got me through and how he took care of me. I was working at Maytag, and here I am working in the garage washing trucks, and then finally they moved me over to the foundry. And I was working, making molds and pouring the hot iron, and I was about 20-year-old then, and I was putting up 244 molds a day and then taking that hot iron and pouring it off, I was working, and you know why I was working so hard? Because finally I was getting paid. Molders were the highest paid people in the whole plant, and the more I worked, the more money I got. And whenever you made $300 at Maytag, if you made over that, nobody was allowed to write a check for over $300. So there was times when I was just, young and strong and I'm able to do it. There was time when I was getting paid 2 checks. You know how that is. I went home, my wife knew about one of them, but she never did know about that other one. Yeah. Because God just gave me the strength to keep on working, To get back focused right here, there is a story in the Bible that tells us about justice and about freedom and about how we are to interact with one another. And it's found in the book of Philemon. Philemon is one of the books in the Bible. It's right before Hebrew, right after the book of Titus in the New Testament. And Philemon had a slave, and his name was Onesimus. Now that's just one chapter long. Paul wrote a letter to Philemon, and he sent it to Philemon. But he sent this slave that Philemon had run away, and no doubt took some of Philemon's possessions with him when he left. And this slave name was Onesimus. But he ran away, and when he went away, he went to Rome. Here Paul is in prison under house arrest or whatever the condition is, but somehow or another he met Onesimus, the runaway slave. He met him, and he began to talk to him, and Onesimus, Paul was wanting to get him saved because he knew he wasn't saved. He kept preaching to him, telling him about what God can do for you if you just give him a chance, and telling him about you don't have to. Because Onesimus began to tell Paul about all the stuff he done. He said, you don't have to steal. You don't have to live that kind of life. You don't dishonor the people that you work for. There's a way around that. And the next thing you know, Paul got Onesimus saved. He became a Christian. And then he began to work for Paul. He began to take letters to different churches that Paul had. And the letter that he took to Philemon, he sent it by Onesimus, the slave that had worked for Philemon, but he ran away. He sent it by him, and he had somebody else with him. I can't remember the name of the other person that was with him that went to the house. But Onesimus, Paul writes, I beseech thee, Philemon, for my son, Onesimus, whom I have begotten in my bonds. He's profitable to me, and I realized that he was unprofitable to you, Philemon. He said, but I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Onesimus didn't know that Paul knew Philemon, but Philemon and Paul were ministers in the gospel together. They were friends. They knew each other. They worked together. They prayed together. They built together. And they did all kind of things together, Philemon and Paul. Yeah. And Paul says to him, he says to Philemon, said, I want you to receive Onesimus back. I want you to take him back and receive him back because he can be profitable to you and to me. And in verse 7, he says, for we have great joy and consolation in thy love, because thy bowels of the saints are refreshed by thee, O brother. Philemon was a good man. He helped the ministry. He contributed to the ministry. He did all kinds of things to support the ministry. And the people of God, he did things to support them. But he hated this runaway slave because he left him. And he ran away. And Paul says, no doubt, he had things that did not belong to him when he left. Things that belonged to Philemon. And verse 9 says, he says to Philemon, he says, yet the letter that he sent to Philemon by Onesimus and others, he said, yet for love's sake, I rather beseech thee, being such a one as Paul the aged. I'm getting old now. And now also I am a prisoner of Jesus Christ. It hurts me sometimes to tell my brothers that he's doing wrong, you know. But because my love for God, sometimes, Pastor, I know. You stand here and you got to tell them anyway. Everybody's not going to like it. You know, I've even seen people at my church get up and leave, you know, every now and then. And then when I meet them, I got to tell them, you know, you were wrong. As a Christian, you can't do that. If you're really going to be a person, a man of God, you're going to have to turn it around. You cannot continue to run from God. You think you're running from us and running from the preacher, but no, you're running from God. So he says to him, the problem that you had, because I didn't have the problem that you have with Onesimus when I met him. And you know why? He said, because you're going to have to learn to treat him like a brother and not a slave. You're going to have to learn to love him like you would your own son, your own family. Paul even said that. He said, to me, he's just like my son. He's so profitable. Anything I ask him to do, he does. You know, but you just can't come in and treat people like they're slaves and expect them to love and stay in that environment. You know, America, I'm wondering, how long can I ring the bell for the sake of freedom? In 200 years, I have not been free 200 years. I realize that America has come a long way. We've done some phenomenal things. And you know, right now, I'll stand here and tell you, I am freer now than I've ever been in my whole life. And it's because of God. I've gotten around roadblocks. I've gotten around obstacles that were in my way. I've gotten around people looking at me and judging me because of the way I look. They don't do that no more. They don't do that no more. Because a lot of times, especially at city council and the people that we have that I work with, great group of people. The city of Cleveland is blessed to have men that are so dedicated. You know, they don't work against each other. Now, I've been on the council a long time. And I want to tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, it ain't always been like that. I've had people in one meeting, just because you vote different from them, the next time you see them, you reach out your hand, they just turn like they don't even see you. They won't shake your hand, you know. But God has been good to the city of Cleveland with elected officials that we have now. Good people, responsible people. And Pastor, a lot of times I've had to stand, but you know, somebody comes in and one of them will have his mind all made up that we're going to do this or do that, you know. And then they got people they want to favor and put in position and all this kind of stuff every now and then, you know. But I'm one that says, no, let's do it the right way. It's not that I'm against them, but I am against doing things wrong. Let's follow the system. Let's do it the right way. And if they win, they win. If they don't, then so be it. That's the way God wants it. But you got to learn to stay and go by the rules, you know. And a lot of them didn't do that. What those people heard, the Americans, the first people that came to America, what they heard was about the Declaration of Independence. And you know, the thing that they didn't realize when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and they signed it and all of that and the document, everybody's going to believe that that's about them too. So there was a lot of people that looked like me. They heard these words that says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, can you imagine? I know you can't imagine, but you know, what this meant to the black race of people. When they heard these words, they thought it meant them. So we pursued, you know, and there were obstacles in the way. I've got 2 sons. I got, how many grandsons we got? 4? Yeah, she got 2 and I got 2. You know, this is my second wife. We've been married now, how many years? 7. I didn't know it was going pretty fast, you know. But we've been married 7 years, you know. But when you think about all that we have been through and what God is doing for us, and my sons, they went to Cleveland High School. They graduated from Cleveland High School. You know, and God bless them. God's blessed them, but he's blessed my grandchildren even. You know, preacher, it's right. It's true. We should have had grandchildren first. My grandson, the oldest one, he just graduated from Georgia State University. Leila's oldest grandson, he just graduated from University of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And the youngest grandson that I've got, I taught him how to play golf. You know, he started out, 2.5-year-old, I gave him a set of clubs, but they were plastic, and he beat them to death, beat everything in the house up, and I give him another set when he got a little older with metal, and he just beat them, and I mean, he just learned how to play golf. Then he took it seriously, and at 11-year-old, we started getting him lessons from pros and from people who really wanted to help him, you know. And so now he's doing fantastic. He's a junior at Kennesaw State, but he loves the game of golf. I invited him to come up to Cleveland and play in the tournament that we had, and the 100 Black Men tournament. A lot of people, a lot of good golfers in that tournament, but we won that tournament. Because this kid can learn, he's hit the ball, he's doing very, very well, and he loves it. He loves it, and he loves the Lord. You know, I could go on and on, Pastor. I don't know how much time I got. I don't even know how much time I've done been speaking, but, you know, God has been good to me, and he'll be good to you. You ought to trust him. My mama used to tell me that. Mama was right about so much stuff, you know, and I've told her that, because I know she's looking down on us. And the thing about it is my mother belonged to the Church of God, but all of her children are Baptists. And what she did was she says, I want y'all to go to the Baptist church. They've got good teachers there, and they got a lot of kids there. We had on Sunday evening at our church, you know, a small church, but we had over 100 kids in Baptist Training Union session. And she would take us in the morning when we get up on Sunday. She'd take us, drop us off at the Baptist church, but she went right on back to her Church of God. You know, and I remember as a kid sitting in her church and listening to them. You know, they kind of get with it. They got rhythm, and and that's the reason why I went, because I love music, and she loved music. But the church, she said, no, you need to learn. You need to learn about God. She said, it is amazing what he can do for you if you just trust him. You know, and I said, okay, Mama, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stay on the right path, and I'm going to do what's right. But as I got older and got in high school, and after I graduated from school, I began to feel a responsibility and a pulling on my life that says you've got to get involved in this community. You've got to do something to help make a difference. And I thank God for that, because that was my calling, and I didn't even know it. I did not even know that that's what God really wanted me to do. You know, and the devil, he was pulling too, because I was such a great musician. I played the drums, and I had a little band, and we were going around everywhere just playing, you know, until I went to Newport, Tennessee. I went to Newport, Tennessee, and I was sitting there, and our little band was playing and everything, and a fight broke out, and I heard a shot, and I told the band, we got to get out of here. We looked out the back window, and the name of the place was the Plantation, and they had built it over water. There's water all the way up. You couldn't go out the back door. And the front door is where the fighting was going on, and so you had to go out the front door. But, you know, I told God, I said, Lord, if you get me out of here, this is my last time. I give it up. I give it up. You know, as much as I love music, and as much as we were pretty good, we played all over the city of Cleveland, everywhere. But I said, no, just get me out of here. Newport, Tennessee, place called the Plantation. Everybody in there had cowboy hats and cowboy boots on, except us. You know, I said, no, get me out of here, and I promise you, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And God did. He really did. I really, Pastor, would love to see if there's anybody here that really believes what I tell you is true. Look at what God has done for me. I wish I had time. I mean, on my job at Maytag, you know, there I was smart and I could speak, and they told me that they wanted me to come to work in the HR department. And I worked in the HR department for 5 years doing management listening sessions and trying to solve problems between management and the people. And the people said, no, we wanted Avery. They wanted me to hold that position. But you know why? Because they trusted me. I love people, and it didn't matter to me what color they were, as long as your character was right, you know. And they trusted me, and I got a job in HR, and they asked me, and actually I was already a supervisor when they called me. And I told them, I said, but you know, as a supervisor, we get bonuses. I said, we get bonuses. I don't want to give up my bonus and come out there and work in the office, because usually the office, you know, it's just, but they wanted me so bad that they said, I tell you what we'll do. So we will give you an 11% raise. Now, I hadn't been getting but 2%, 3% out in the plant, but 11%? I said, what'd you say? They said 11%, we promise we'll give you 11% starting off. We'll raise it. And then to take care of your bonus, we'll give you a bonus out here. I said, okay. So I took that job, working in HR, helped a lot of people, helped management a lot, you know. But God's been good to me. He's always showed up. Mama used to tell me that, and he'll always be on time, Avery. He'll always be on time. I just can't tell you how valuable it is when you just turn it over to God and let him come in. Pastor, if you would, just come and make the appeal.
Yes. I love this man. I love this guy. Hang here with me a second. If you could put it together for a moment. If you're somebody that feels like you have limitations or barriers, perhaps because of the color of your skin, perhaps because of socioeconomics, perhaps because you don't have the right circle of friends, and you feel those barriers, I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit wants you to work over that. And he'll help you. When I hear stories like this, it gives me courage. And he mentioned, you're right, we didn't, for several years we were here, we didn't know each other that well, and then we ended up in some business workings with the city. And what I've observed about his leadership is he always wants to do the right thing. He really wants to do the right thing, and that comes from biblical values. And if we could ever get a hold of that and do the right thing, and look at pulling together and unifying and helping one another, we'll all go a long ways, will we not? And not only that, we'll win this world. So many times we've taken the opposite approach of beating one another up and judging. But thanks be unto God, if you just do the right thing and do your best to do the right thing, the Lord will help you.